In this video, I'm just going to cover a few search tips on Lexis for finding court rules, including rules of professional responsibility. I'm also going to show you where the Massachusetts Guide to Evidence is, as well as just a couple of quick tips on secondary sources. So on Lexis, as you know from other videos, we can use the Explore Content tab, which is what I'm going to do in a minute to get to material. We can use the Browse button. We can use a search approach where we limit, instead of searching everything, we can search by jurisdiction. We could pick our state, Massachusetts, and then category for court rules would want to pick statutes and legislation because, as you know from the other videos, that's where we find the court rules. But as I said, I'm going to do a browse approach where we go into Massachusetts materials. And I'm going to look underneath statutes and legislation, and you can see a little bit different than on Westlaw. They separate out the court rules in a separate category. You could click on this to search all of the federal and state court rules, but I'm going to do again show you the outline so that you can see what's contained. And you can see again we have the general rules of applicability at the top, the rules of civil procedure, criminal procedure, and appellate procedure. We have that Massachusetts Guide to Evidence we talked about, and then we have the different court rules from the different courts in Massachusetts. So let's take a look at that rule of civil procedure that we were looking at on Westlaw. So we're just going to look at the Massachusetts rules of civil procedure. And the one we were looking at had to do with pleadings. So I'll just open that up and look at Rule 7. Okay, so just like on Westlaw, we get the text of the rule. We have the history of the rule here, so this tells us when it was amended. We also have how recent the whole database is. So this rule was last amended in 1982, but the database is current through March 24th, 2017. So we know that even though it hasn't been changed since 82, there have not been any changes up through this date, March 24th. Okay. On Westlaw, we use the tabs across the top to get to the notes of decision. On Lexis, just like in a statute, we'll look underneath the rule, and there we'll see the annotations, including the reporter's notes, and links here to the case snippets, the case notes it's called on Lexis, organized by category. You'll just, if you look at this in general, you'll see little snippets from the cases and clickable links to the case law that interprets this rule of civil procedure in Massachusetts. We can also get to Shepard's results, but unlike again Westlaw, we have to click over here to Shepardize the document. And once we're in the Shepard's results, we have a feature on Lexis that we don't have on Westlaw. We can actually limit not just to the rule, but how the rule was cited in different ways by the court. So for example, a lot of courts have cited it as Rule 7A. Sometimes just Rule 7B is cited, or just Rule B1. So if we're looking for a particular subsection, this can be a really good way to find cases that talk about a particular subsection of the rule. One other reminder on Lexis, once you're into the Shepard's results, you land on citing decisions, which are the cases that talk about the rule. But there is other information here, including more history information and also other citing sources. Actually, for this particular subsection, there isn't anything, but if there were secondary sources that were talking about this rule, this is where we'd find that. Okay, let's go back out to the SJC rules because I want to again look at those rules of professional conduct in Massachusetts, which, as you know, are in Rule 307. Okay, so I've just opened up the table of contents a little bit off screen, and under Rule 307, this is just the preamble. So underneath that, you'll see the Massachusetts Rules of Professional Conduct. If you open that up, you'll see again the same categories that we had on Westlaw basically, and you can go into the same rules. For example, we'll look again at Rule 1.14, client with diminished capacity. And again, you'll notice it looks like a statute, right? You have when it was last amended, how current it is, the case law annotations, you'll have commentary, and then the case notes that are underneath. And just like we were looking at the last rule, you can shepherdize the document here. So very similar features to on Westlaw, they're just, you have to click in different places. So I'm back out at that main table of contents one more time. I want to show you this Massachusetts Guide to Evidence. We looked at this on Westlaw. Again, we can look at it here. Let's look at one of the witness provisions. Say we want to know about interpreters. We're looking at that provision of this guide. You can see we get, won't really call it a rule because we don't have codified rules, but this section that has to do with interpreters. And if we look at the note, we can see where this statement was derived from, and in this case it's from the federal rules as well as some Massachusetts case law on point and a Massachusetts statute. This one difference is we can't shepherdize this document. Some of the guide to evidence sections do have a shepardizing link here, but every one I clicked on, none of them worked. So that's a little bit of a difference between Lexis and Westlaw for this guide to evidence. Finally, I just wanted to mention a few secondary source materials that might be helpful to you. Let's click into all of them here. So you'll note that there are MCLE publications here. We looked at those on Westlaw. You know they're available on Bloomberg, and they're also available on the MCLE Online Pass database platform. In addition to these MCLE, there are a couple of other things if we scroll down. One is this LexisNexis practice guide series. There are a lot of these that have to do with trial practice. For example, this one, civil pretrial practice or civil trial practice or criminal law. There's one for appellate practice as well. Any of these could be helpful for procedural issues that involve rules practice or evidentiary issues. The other one that I wanted to mention is a Matthew Bender product. So you obviously these LexisNexis ones you wouldn't see on Westlaw. The same for the Matthew Bender treatises. You're not going to find those on Westlaw. And the one that I thought might be helpful is this suppression matters under Massachusetts law. We'll take a quick look at the table of contents. And you can see that it's criminal law issues, but a lot of it has to do with evidentiary issues and also evidentiary issues at both the state and federal level and constitutional issues as well. Okay, so that was hopefully just a quick overview to how to find some of these valuable materials on Lexis.